Hello and welcome back to our Pokemon Yellow Minimum Battles series. Here in the first phase of our videos, we're going through Brock with all 151 Pokemon in Generation 1 to find out which ones can make it through the Rock Hard Gym Leader on Minimum Battles. In this section of the game, there are only 3 battles to do. The rival in Professor Oak's lab, 1 bug catcher in Viridian Forest, and then finally Brock himself. Up to now, we've tested the first 31 Pokemon, and of those, a whole 15 have been able to make it through Brock on minimum battles. It's approximately 50% so far, and today as we enter the next section, we may be looking at adding quite a few more Pokemon to that list. In today's video, we're going to check the next 14 Pokemon of Generation 1. So we have Nidoran Male, Nidorino, and Nidoking, Clefairy, Clefable, Vulpix, Ninetales, Jigglypuff, Wigglytuff, Zubat, Golbat, Oddish, Gloom, and Vileplume. I think the last 3 are going to be shoo-ins to get through Brock, because they're going to have super effective moves. But we've seen so far that any Pokemon that can status Brock reliably, that can stall him out somehow, or that can just do enough special damage, seems to be able to get through. So I think a few of these Pokemon might have some interesting battles here. Please remember from last video that whenever there's a evolved Pokemon that comes from a stone evolution, Moonstone, Grassstone for example, they tend to start with some very interesting and powerful movesets that allow them to get through Brock even when they would have a type disadvantage. So, without further ado, let's look at the rules. We're going to only use 1 Pokemon in battle, no items or glitches, but we will be using a Game Shark to set DVs to their maximum amount. These determinate values will ensure that the Pokemon is the best version of itself, so it has the highest chance of getting through Brock. If it can't get through with max DVs, then it really doesn't deserve to get through. Finally, we're going to take a maximum of 10 attempts per trainer as we go through the game. If we can't beat it in 10 attempts, we'll go ahead and cut off there. But some Pokemon, it will be clear even before 10 attempts that they can't do it. So at that point, we're just going to cut it off. We're not going to waste a bunch of time trying a battle over and over again that clearly doesn't work. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get to today's challenge. So today, we're going to be playing in Pokemon Yellow, and our first challenger today is going to be Nidoran Male. So let's go ahead and start this new game, and I have not played through in advance with any of these Pokemon, so I'm not entirely sure what their movesets are going to be. I can make some pretty good guesses. But of course, Nidoran Male is just going to start with its basic attacks, so I believe it's going to have Leer and Tackle at the beginning. Now, if it can make it to level 8, it will get Horn Attack before it fights Brock. But it's really a matter of, how much it levels up. I believe it's in the same level of group as the starters, which means that it's going to hit level 8 before we reach Brock, which will be good. But I'm not too hopeful for Nidoran Male, given that Nidoran Female failed at this part of the challenge. Nidorino and Nidoking are going to be much more interesting, given their ability to generate attack output. So, this Pokemon, after its first battle, will be going up to having maximum DVs, so we're going to just see how that goes here. We'll start by leering the Eevee a couple times, and that did not work. Okay, so we're gonna have to already make our first reset with this Pokemon. So, let's try this again. And here we're just gonna keep everything simple. We're always just gonna be Ash. We're gonna let our opponent be Gary. That was the anime names. That's why we use them. Basically, I like to play Pokemon Yellow because it was supposed to follow the anime, but it's also a much better game than Pokemon Red and Blue in a lot of ways. Movesets for Pokemon are better. in general, it's a more challenging version of the game. Like Pokemon Red and Blue, really with certain types of Pokemon, you can just completely crush everything up through the Elite Four with very little difficulty. Just because the game is that bad, the AI is that weak. So that's already 2 losses to the rival in Oak's lab. This is one of the other things that makes this game quite difficult, actually, is that Eevee, starting with Tackle, actually gets a stab boost, whereas in the original Red, Blue, and Yellow games, you didn't have to deal with that factor because none of the starters were normal types, and they all started with normal type moves. So the first time you'd see stab would be when you fought west of Viridian City, if you fought Rival 1A, and otherwise it would be once you got to Cerulean City and you fought Rival 2, would be really the first time that you would see a Pokemon that had, you know, in some way, shape, or form, like a stab move against you. Yeah, this Eevee is just hitting hard here. Okay, let's go ahead and give ourselves another reset. It would be pretty bad if Nidoran Male can't even make it past the rival here. Okay, and there we finally got through. So that was a bit of a challenge. Unlike Nidoran Female, Nidoran Male I think has lower defense, so it's just not as strong of a Pokemon in that sense when we're facing a Pokemon early on that has Stab against us. Or, yeah, Stab. So, anyway, we're gonna go through, we're gonna do the Oaks Parcel run, and get on through here. So, Nidoran Male I'm not so excited for. I think that it's gonna struggle when we get to Brock. It's just not gonna have anything that really gives it an advantage when we get to Brock. Nidoran, or Nidorino, we'll have to see. Nidoran or not Nidoran Female, Nidorina, seemed like it was kind of on the cusp of getting through Brock. It just couldn't quite get enough luck to get through. So it could be very luck-based, whether or not Nidorino can get through or not. The Nidoking, I think, will start with the move Thrash. And if it does, that will be very interesting, because it will have a powerful attacking move, but it will also confuse itself, and that may end up hurting it. But at the same time, if it can lower the defense of the opponent enough, it might be able to get through. Now, there are some Pokemon that I'm really excited to try this with today, because I believe Clefable will start with Metronome, because it's a Stone Evolution, so it gets really weird movesets off the front end, and then Jigglypuff is going to know Sing, but it's not going to know any attacking moves. So it's going to have to struggle, but it's possible that Sing could help in some capacity. And then Wigglytuff is going to have, again, a very interesting moveset, I think. Okay, so here we're going to go ahead and do our best there, but that did not work. So we're going to have to go ahead and make another reset here. But yeah, Wigglytuff is going to be very interesting, I think, because it will at least have that potential to do something there. And then the Zubat and Golbat, again, with Golbat in particular having some possibility of confusion on the opponent, is going to be a very interesting run, I think. basically, okay, so that's really the max damage that we can do. So there's really probably not much point in doing more than, yeah, so just going for horn attack straight doesn't work. But it looks like maybe if we try one, we just need to get insane luck here with like a miss right there, and possibly we could get through the Geodude. So it's not impossible for Geodude to miss with Tackle, it's just not highly likely. So of course starting out with a critical hit is not really what we want to see. So let's give this 2 more attempts, and then we're going to say that this is probably not possible. See, we get him down to red health, but we would need him to at least miss 1 more attack to give us a shot, and we just didn't get there. So we can see that Nidoran male is really just on the cusp of whether or not it can get through, and that makes me think that probably this just isn't a great situation here. So we're going to go ahead and move on to Nidorino, and hopefully it will give us a better shot of getting through. So let's move on to Nidorino, but for now, Nidoran male, you are eliminated. So let's go back to our Nidorino, and try round number 2 here. So I get the feeling that if Nidoran male was that close, then probably Nidorino can get through the Geodude is my bet. But then Onix is going to be the challenge, because, you know, getting through the Geodude, as we've seen in past playthroughs, is no cakewalk, especially compared to Red and Blue, because this Geodude only attacks. It never wastes turns, you know, trying to buff its defense. But it's kind of strange, but at this point in the game, really trying to boost your own stats, you know, with defense buffs actually isn't a very good strategy, at least for Brock, because it just gives us more turns to hit him and possibly get critical hits that just ignore his stat boosts. But on the flip side, we may end up having situations where we can use something like that. Here we can see that with Nidorino, getting through the rival was a piece of cake. We would expect that to be the case. Nidoking's probably just going to absolutely wreck the rival there. But here we're going to basically get back to Geodude with the same strategy, which is going to be to Leer. We'll see if 1, 2, 3 seems to make any difference with how many or how much damage we do. And then it's going to be a whole lot of horn attacks trying to take it out. Then against Onix, we really need certain kinds of luck. And it depends somewhat on whether or not we outspeed or not. Anytime we can outspeed Onix, we have a huge advantage, because we can just wait for him to use Bide to lower his stats, and when he doesn't use Bide, we can just attack normally. Let's see. Okay, let's get up through this old man, as usual. And Reinforced Caterpie, I think, is gonna be no problem for this Nidorino. I mean, it wasn't a problem for Nidoran male, so why would it be a problem for Nidorino? He's already got stronger attacks, he's already got better stats. So let's go ahead and fight the Caterpie here. And I'm not even going to waste time with status moves, I'm just going to take it out. And perfect! We are up to level 8 and we are ready to go to Brock. So here in this section, I mean, Brock is really the challenge, you know? Most Pokemon have been able to get through the lab and the bug catcher. The real exceptions were like Kakuna, Metapod, and Caterpie, which were all too weak to even get to Brock, according to our rules. But alright, here we are. So let's try. We're going to start off with a couple of Leers, and then let's use Horn Attack. So it's basically the same strategy, but that one did not work. Let's try again here. Let's see if one Leer basically does the same thing as 2 Leers. Certainly possible, given that we have higher stats. Let's see if 3 Leers does anything for us here. Nope, that just got us knocked out. Okay, this one's looking promising. There we go. We've gotten through Geodude and leveled up. And it looks like we do outspeed Onyx when we get there. So we really just need a decent amount of luck there. And we're going to be able to get through reasonably well, I think. So here we're going to always lead off with some Leers. Okay. We really want him to just keep using Bide. And that was pretty close. We didn't quite get there. We needed him to use Bide one more time, and we would have gotten through. So that's pretty good with an attack miss, but then he gets a crit on us. Okay, we did take him out. Okay, we really want to see like Screech and Bide. Okay. Yep, keep using Bide. And we're through! Nidorino has beat Brock! So it was really just a matter of getting the right kind of luck there, which is always nice to see. But Nidorino, it was powerful enough, it was able to do enough damage. We just needed to lower Brock's stats just a little bit and get the right kind of luck with that Bide. So with that, we can officially say that our first Pokemon has made it through for today. I feel like today we're actually going to get through with more than half of these Pokemon. I think that there's going to be enough ways to really affect Brock, whether it's by using things like Confusion when we get to Golbat, it's using things like Metronome when we get to Clefairy, whether it's using Sing or other kinds of status moves. I really think that we're going to have a pretty good time against him overall, because these are the things that Brock struggles with. I think this is actually the reason why Brock has so many full heals, is because probably when they originally made the game, they weren't actually sure about what Pokemon they were going to put before Brock. They were probably thinking about it still. So they didn't know at that time that the Weedle line was actually going to be the only line that had status moves, unless you really leveled up a Bulbasaur. So it seems pretty likely to me that they thought that there might be a lot more status moves available before Brock. And Brock is so weak to status. He really struggles so hard against any sort of status move once it hits him, that by giving him full heal, I think they were hoping that he would be able to, heal up, and a lot of status moves are not 100% accurate, so they at least make Brock a little bit more challenging, because otherwise, if you have any sort of status move like a paralysis move or a sleep move, you can really make Brock kind of a joke, to be perfectly honest. It makes sense. I mean, he's the first gym leader, but I think we're going to see as we go through that even Pokemon that don't have very effective moves are going to be able to get through as long as they're able to status Brock reliably enough. So I'll be really interested later in the game when we get to some Pokemon like Jinx that will start off with like Pound and Lovely Kiss. Pound obviously isn't going to be great against Brock, but the fact that it will have Lovely Kiss could give it a decent chance of statusing him enough times that he uses up his full heals, then actually put him to sleep properly, and then pound him until he goes down. Alright, so we've made it to the bug catcher with Nidoking. Again, I think this is going to be a joke, which it is. The only thing that's really working against Nidoking here is that while Thrash is a very strong move, it's going to suffer from the fact that he's going to confuse himself after using it a few times. And the other thing is that it looks like this Nidoking does not have Leer. It's forgotten that very first move in its moveset. It has gotten Poison Sting instead, but it's kind of interesting to see that. So here we are, first time against Brock. I think we're just going to lead off with Thrash and hope to do enough damage. And we really have to hope that we don't hit ourselves in confusion too much. So there we can see just hitting ourselves in confusion one time was enough to basically guarantee that we couldn't get through. And Poison Sting's just not doing enough damage. So let's try again. It looks like Thrash is our best option. It does good damage, but we really have to avoid hitting ourselves in confusion like that. So we're kind of turning confusion luck against ourselves. So when we use Thrash, okay, and now we're through. The other thing that we have to be really careful about with Thrash is that if he uses Bide, and there we just knocked ourselves out. But if he uses Bide, we're not going to be able to stop thrashing, and that could potentially lead to us getting or taking a lot of hits, or a lot of damage back. Okay, so it looks like against Onix, when it uses Bide, our best move is to actually just use Poison Sting, because it looks like Poison Sting doesn't do any damage to the Onix. Okay, and that one just didn't work out. Yeah, this is really a luck-based battle if there ever was one, because it really comes down to our own confusion luck. Okay, so we got through the Geodude. And see, just that one hit basically was enough to let Onix take us out, even though we had decent health before that, so. Okay. And this one's gonna be very interesting, because what happens if we can't get through Brock with the evolved form, even though we made it through with the unevolved form. That's going to be very interesting to think about. Okay. And that was just enough to take us out. We're going to have to take just a couple more attempts here, but this is not looking great for Nidoking, which is somewhat shocking, but it's just the lack of a status move that seems to be affecting things here. Okay. Let's call this the last attempt, so... Alright, and there we have it. Nidoking is the first Pokemon that wasn't even like a full evolution that couldn't get through when its lower evolution was able to get through. And that's pretty shocking, because you would think Nidoking, being a much more powerful Pokemon, having much higher attack stats, would be able to make it through if Nidorino could. But the real thing that's holding it back is that it doesn't have Leer. If it had Leer, I think that this would be a cakewalk, but the fact that it doesn't have Leer, the fact that Thrash confuses it after it finishes, the fact that it has a high chance of hitting itself in confusion, all contributes to it not being able to get through. That was pretty shocking. That's probably the biggest shock so far of the series, to be perfectly honest. There are a lot of speedrunners that try to get a Nidoking and, you know, just smash through the game with it. But typically they're getting it in Mount Moon, where it has more of a moveset to open up to it. So, yeah, Nidoking. Sorry, but you're out of there. So, let's go to the next Pokemon, which is going to be Clefairy. And Clefairy I'm not super excited for, because as far as I can remember, it's only going to know Pound when it gets to Brock. It's not got a great moveset, or it might know Pound and Growl, if I recall correctly, but it doesn't have a great moveset. I don't think that it's going to do that well against Brock. So the only thing that we can really wait and see is, you know, maybe, just maybe, it will, you know, be able to stall him out somehow, lower his attack enough that it can get through, for example, with Growl. But yeah, Pound and Growl are its attacks. So I don't think there's any point messing around. We just want to pound against the rival. And, I mean, Clefairy's not terrible. It's part of the fast level up group, but I don't know that that's actually going to result in it being at a higher level than the medium slow group, which includes like Bulbasaur, Ivysaur. Just now with Nidorino, for example, it's part of that medium slow level up group, which is not really a good name for it, because the medium slow level up group actually levels up very fast at the beginning of the game, and it's not really taken over by the medium fast level up group until something like level 68, if I recall correctly. So in the early game, Pokemon that are classified as medium fast level up group Pokemon actually only reach Brock at level 6, whereas Pokemon in the medium slow level up group reach Brock at level 8, so a whole 2 levels higher. And I guess that's supposed to offset the fact that they level up slower later in the game, but it seems to me to be a huge disadvantage early in the game, because levels are very important early in the game, you know, in terms of the time that it takes to get through. If you're having to sit here in Viridian Forest and grind like an extra 2 levels, or 3 levels, that's a significant amount of time. Now, what we can see is Pokemon in this fast level up group are actually only going to make it to level 7 before Brock. And I don't think that bodes very well for Clefairy or Jigglypuff, who are both in the fast level up group, because they're getting there at an even lower level than a lot of other Pokemon in the medium slow group. And they're also not learning any new moves. So this one is gonna be a little bit of a challenge, I think. So first I want to see just how low we can get his attack. It looks like we can only get him down to doing 2 damage per turn, which is important to know because that means that when we see him do 2 damage to us with an attack, we should really no longer use Growl. We should just go into attack mode at that point. We are making up ground, but maybe not making it up fast enough. So we really need Geodude to not critical hit us like that, for one. We really need the Geodude to get at least a couple of misses, it looks like, in order to get through. It's not impossible. We've seen runs where Geodude missed a bunch of times, and you know, if Clefairy can get a bunch of critical hits, taking out Geodude might just be possible. Like that. There we go. Okay, we've leveled up to level 8. And now we have to hope that we can do the same thing here. But yeah, once we get to Onix, we really just need it to use Bide over and over again, basically. And then we need to get critical hits. We need Geodude, come on, please miss. Alright, so this is really going to be a long shot no matter how we do it, but we've seen that we can get the right kind of luck to get through Geodude, which basically involves us getting critical hits and Geodude missing. We are faster than the Geodude, so it's not like it's impossible. It doesn't help when he critical hits us, though. So that's a reset. Oops, didn't need to use that. One more. Brow. Yeah, we just gotta get some luck here. Come on, Geodude. Just miss some attacks so that we can use Pound against you repeatedly. And now give us some crits so that we can get through. Yeah, that just didn't happen there. I'm not 100% sure, but I think each Geodude is unique, meaning that it will have different DVs, and based on those DVs, it should have higher or lower HP, for example. So it's very possible that the one that we actually made it through on just had the right stats, the right weaknesses, plus we were getting critical hits, plus it missed a couple times. But I think right there we gotta call it and say that it was a good fight out of Clefairy, but Clefairy just wasn't quite strong enough to get through. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and eliminate Clefairy from the challenge. Clefairy, sorry, but you are out of there. So far we're only batting 1 for 4. Now clearly when we get to the Oddish and Gloom section, we're gonna make up the number of Pokemon that get through, but I'm actually a little shocked because I thought that we would at least be 50-50 at this point, and then have the chance to get through later on with some stronger Pokemon, and maybe get a run where we have more than half get through. But now I'm kind of doubting that, because I can already imagine that Zubat's going to struggle. Golbat, I think, is on the fence. the Vulpix and Ninetales aren't necessarily going to be great. It's really going to depend on their movesets and how much damage they can do with Ember. So it's going to be kind of interesting, I think. So let's make sure that we got our... Okay, yeah, so we've got our Max DV's Game Shark. There's actually a website from... It's hosted on the University of Miami Math Department website, actually. But there is a website just about maxing out the DVs of Pokemon so that you get the best possible version. Anyway, so very quickly, let's look at Clefable's moveset here, because this is pretty dope. It has Sing, and it has Minimize, so it has two ways to kind of make itself annoying for opponents. Double Slap is its normal damage-dealing move, but then it has Metronome. And Metronome is another one that could be very interesting. Here we're using Fire Spin. Now we've gained armor, and we used Mega Punch, and boom, we've gotten through the rival just using Metronome. And Metronome could be a legitimate strategy for a lot of the game. It's going to be incredibly luck-based, but Clefable later will get an amazing moveset. But in the meantime, we can just use Metronome to probably get through a lot of Pokemon where it's just a roll of the dice. You know, can we use Earthquake on Lieutenant Surge? Can we use something like Thunder on Misty? You know, and here with Brock, okay, can we use Solar Beam on him? Something like that. So if we get desperate, that may be our move, that may be our strategy, to say, okay, if Brock's not working, then we're going to go ahead and just try Metronome in order to try to get through. Or if it looks like we're on low HP and we might not get through Onix, that might be our Hail Mary. But honestly, with Minimize, I think that we're going to have a decent chance because we're going to be able to... It's basically the same as Double Team strats, right? And then Double Slap does multiple turns of damage, so this one's actually quite interesting. Even though we're getting there at the same level 7, I think that this Pokemon has a real chance based on its moveset. So, let's try Clefable against Brock. How trolly can we be? I vote, let's start with Minimize a bunch of times. Okay, and then let's Double Slap. So it really depends on how many times we hit with Double Slap, but we're super trolly here because we're basically very difficult to hit, and now we just need to do like 1 damage. Okay, and we took it out with Razor Wind. So Geodude is out of there. Now let's see what we can do. Again, we're just being annoying by singing against the Onix. And it's not going to do a ton of damage to us. Okay, and we've reached the point where it actually can't do a whole lot to us, but we need to get a good move with Metronome. Oh no, we're stuck using Rage for the rest of the battle. Oh god, this is terrible, legitimately terrible, because we're stuck using Rage, but oh, we got through, we have Stab. Like, Rage is the worst move in the game. that is not like a worthless move, something like String Shot or something like Splash, because Rage just locks you into attacking every single turn. But it's so funny that Metronoming Rage was what got us through Brock. Oh my god. So, with that, Clefable has gotten through. We have another winner in today's challenge. That was hilarious. I can just imagine a bunch of Pokemon YouTubers just losing their minds. Thinking about guys like J-Rose, who absolutely hates Rage. And they just get that move right there against Brock, and it looks like the battle's over, because all he has to do is hit us enough times, or he can use Bide, because Bide never misses. So even with, all of our setup, he could have just completely wrecked us by using Bide. But he didn't. We got through. That's another Pokemon. So now we have successfully made it with 2 out of the first 5, and we're moving on to Vulpix. So, Vulpix I'm excited for because... Oh no, we became Jack. So we're gonna make this guy Bob in this one. There we go, Bob. I'm excited for Vulpix because I believe it starts with Ember, and Ember being a special type move that can also do status. We've seen this at least in half of the winning movesets when we got through Brock, was that just a special type move that can inflict status wrecks Brock so badly. It really makes him a joke, because he uses full heals up to 5 times, but after he uses his 5 full heals, it's really just a matter of, luck, basically. But every time that he uses a full heal, it's essentially like an attack missed for that turn, because we're going to use Ember regardless of what he does. That's always going to be our move choice, because Tail Whip's not going to do anything, because Ember's a special type move. So we're just going to sit there and use Ember over and over again. The only place where Tail Whip's going to be useful is in the case that Onix uses Bide, and we don't want to do damage to him while he uses Bide, so we use Tail Whip instead, and possibly can get through that way. But otherwise, we're just using Ember, for example, against the Geodude, so every time that it has to heal, it's essentially like it wasted a turn, it missed an attack. And of course, if we can burn it enough times, it will actually be burned, then its damage output will be reduced, as well as it will take extra damage each turn. So a perfect run would be something like 5 burns in a row, with Brock following every single one with a full heal, and then getting a 6th burn in a row, which would be incredibly unlikely, but really clutch. If we could get 6 burns in a row on Brock, that would be just monumental, because at that point, it would, like I said, really make him a joke. Now, the problem that we're going to have is that we're only at level 6. This is another Pokemon that's in the medium-fast level up group, and because of that, it's going to hit Brock at a very low level. But if we can get the burn luck, we might get through. So let's try it out. Let's go ahead and start with our Embers against Geodude. And that one did not work out, we can see. We really need the burn luck here in order to get through him. Crits plus burns would be the absolute best, but it looks like we can only take about 4 hits before we're out, so... Okay, that's 1 burn. That's exactly what we want to see. And then it reduces his damage that he does. Okay, and that's another burn, and we're through the Geodude. Okay, and we got taken out by Onix, but basically, if we can burn the Geodude relatively early, that's going to lower its damage output, which again will go a huge way towards making this run possible. Okay, and we're again through Geodude, and we just really don't want to see that bind there. So in every case, what we really want to see is a burn very early on in the battle, so that we lower his damage output. And then what we want to see is some misses, more burns, etc. to help us get through. So that one didn't work. This is definitely one of those where anything's going to be possible provided we get just the right kind of luck, right? But it might not be 10 attempts, it might require, 50 attempts, 100 attempts, maybe 1,000 attempts in order to get through. All just depending on how frequently we can get that burn that we need. So we're going to give it 2 more attempts here with the Vulpix before we have to back up and say this is not possible. So that was 1. Let's try 1 more. And there, it just didn't quite work. So Vulpix has the right kind of move, and like I said, if we repeated this maybe 1,000 times, it might be possible to get through. But given our rules, 10 attempts per trainer, it's just not possible with that setup. Now, Ninetales is going to be in the same situation as far as it's going to get to Brock at level 6. But Ninetales is going to have a pretty big advantage in terms of its stats, and it's also going to get more moves. Given that it's a stone evolution, it should get there with something interesting, I think. I'd be very interested if it gets there with Confuse Ray. Because if it gets there with Confuse Ray, that would be incredibly interesting. Because confusing Brock's Pokemon could be an effective strategy to get through. But with that said, let's see. So, we're just about to get our Ninetales here. Let Gary push us out of the way so he can take Eevee. And haha, we don't even want that Eevee. But we do not get Confuse Ray. We get Quick Attack and Roar. Now, Roar is incredibly useless in this sort of playthrough. It doesn't really do anything for us. But there could be some application for Quick Attack with Tail Whip, assuming that we get any situation where we're able to get a lot of Tail Whips off against the Onix. Basically, if Onix uses Bide and we use Tail Whip, now we would actually have a reason to take advantage of that, which would be to use Quick Attack, but only if it reaches a point where it does more damage than Ember, which likely would mean that we would have to get all of our Tail Whips off. But even then, Ember might still be the play on the basis that it can burn and make Brock waste turns. So this one's gonna be pretty tough, given that it's gonna be a low-level Pokemon. It does not get a confusion move, which I was kind of hoping that it would. And then on top of that, it's gonna get there, and the types don't line up well. But, I mean, that being said, like, we saw Charmeleon could get through at level 8 with Ember. So, it could just be a matter of luck. It could be a matter of burns and everything else, but here, I mean, this Caterpie in the forest is really a joke, because we got a super effective move against it. But when we think about Oddish, that could actually be Oddish's most difficult part, actually, would be being resisted by the Caterpie. That would be pretty embarrassing to have a Pokemon that seems like a sure thing against Brock get walled by the Caterpie. Anyway, so here we are, first time against Brock. We're just going to lead off with Embers to start. And there are some good things here. It looks like we're doing more damage than he's doing, so we're going to take out the Geodude pretty reliably, it looks like. Okay, and we like to see that Bide. We don't like to see that. Okay. So here I think we just have to go all Ember, and just switch to using Quick Attack if we get really low on HP or something, because... Alright, so that one didn't work, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel here. If we can get some burns off, if we can do enough to these Pokemon to waste some turns, for example. There we go, we got the burn turn 1, and now we can just Tail Whip until he finishes his Bide. And this is looking good, there we go! We have gotten through Brock with Ninetales. It was just a matter of Ember burn luck, basically. We got the burn right away on the Geodude, lowered its attack. We were able to then just outpace it in terms of damage. And then we were able to get the burn on Onix, and yet again, we just were able to outpace it in terms of damage. So, of the first 7 Pokemon for today, we've been able to get through with 3. Nidorino, Clefable, and Ninetales. Nidoking was the big surprise so far, because we would have expected it to get through, but because of the fact that it couldn't stop hitting itself in confusion after using Thrash, and its other moves just weren't strong enough to get through Geodude reliably, we really have to chalk this one up to... Not only do you need a powerful move to get through Brock, but you need some sort of status move or some sort of move that will allow you to lower the defense of his Pokemon. And if you do anything that causes your own Pokemon to become confused, that's almost like... Again, Nidoking with enough attempts could probably get through, but how many attempts will it take? That's a pretty good question. Same for Vulpix. So it's not that those 2 Pokemon are completely out of it, so to speak, but it might be interesting to come back and see later if we could get through with enough attempts and just how many attempts it would actually take to get through. Anyway, with that being said, let's go to our next Pokemon, which is Jigglypuff. And Jigglypuff is going to be a really challenging Pokemon for this kind of run, because Jigglypuff only starts with one move, Sing. And so, yes, Sing could be interesting in that it could get the opponent to use all of his full heals, but there's no way to do damage with it. And we're not going to reach level 9, which is the level at which Jigglypuff learns Pound, from what I can recall. So this one I'm going to go ahead and say right off the bat, I don't think it's going to be even close to possible. I think that this, really, to get through with Jigglypuff, we would need to be at a much higher level, and we would need to grind some levels in order to actually get some moves that would work against Brock. Because 15 PP on Sing, I'm not sure that this is going to work. So, we'll start off here against the rival. Okay, we're able to Sing against him, which is interesting, to say the least. But now, with the amount of damage that he's done to us, I don't think we're going to be able to get through because we just don't have enough HP left over to struggle him down. So let's try this one more time. We really should have saved just before the rival, because this one is definitely going to be a challenge, no matter what we do. But fortunately, we're right here at the beginning, so we don't have to deal with any mistakes like last time, where we were like all the way at Brock and then reset back to Pallet Town. But yeah, this Jigglypuff, I'm not very confident in it. So let's go ahead and save right there, and let's give the rival another go. Now, of course, the good part of Sing is that it can put the opponent to sleep for several turns. You know, up to 5 turns, I think. And so Sing is by far and away the most annoying move in this generation. Okay, and now we're gonna struggle, and there, we struggled it on down, so we have made it through the rival, in Oak's lab at least, with a Jigglypuff that only knows Sing. And we definitely need to win that fight, because we're already only going to be at level 7 when we reach Brock, and it's not really going to do much for us to reach Brock with, you know, any lower level. Like, that's just going to put us in the position where we're doing 1 damage to him, we're doing 1 damage to ourselves, and we end up just knocking ourselves out. Something that will be interesting, in the forest here, we're going to have to use up our Sings, and we're going to have to struggle against the Caterpie. But this might be a case where it's better to heal up with potions after that fight. Assuming we can win that fight, it may be better to heal up with potions after that fight, because then we could just go into Brock already struggling, and possibly be able to just start dealing damage as opposed to trying to use Sing strategies. The advantage of Sing would be that if we could get it off 6 times and use up all of his full heals, but also at the same time make sure that we had enough HP, I guess, to get through. You know, it's really the challenge there, is having enough HP to get through, and we're not going to be very fast. So, yeah, like, could we get him 6 times in a row? That's a pretty good question right there. Okay, so now we're struggling against the Caterpie. We're at level 7. But one time, let's go to Brock just with this Jigglypuff as it is. Let's not heal at the Pokemon Center. And so let's go ahead and save right here in front of Brock. And we're going to use 2 potions in order to get up to full health. And now we're going to try to fight Brock. And we're just leading off with Struggle. And that did not work. As we can see, the Geodude, you know, is just doing lots of damage to us. So, let's try a different strategy. Now, let's go ahead and heal up and try singing a lot of times against the Geodude. It might win us just enough turns that we can struggle it down, but I don't know. This feels like a pretty long shot. So, okay, we sang it full healed. 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 So we were just able to get him to use all of his full heals, but we need better Sing luck than that. Okay. Okay, that's 3, 4, 5. Okay, and now it's actually legitimately asleep. Okay, and now we have to try to struggle it down quickly. And yeah, that didn't work. So we got there at such low HP that it just wasn't gonna happen. Like, we really need none of these things to miss. We need to not be taking damage from Geodude. Because here at 12 health, I mean, already we know it has more than 12 health, and we're not going to be able to knock it out. Assuming that we're probably only doing 1 damage per turn. Okay, this is much better Sing luck so far. Okay. Okay, so now we are using Struggle. But again, this just doesn't seem to be working. So I think we're going to call this one right there. It's pretty clear that Jigglypuff can't make it through. So Jigglypuff, there you go. You're out of there. With that being said, I think Jigglypuff and Clefairy were always going to be Pokemon that we thought probably couldn't get through. But now Wigglytuff is more interesting. Wigglytuff, again, it's a Stone Evolution. What we've seen consistently is that Stone Evolution Pokemon seem to do pretty well against Brock. And the reason that they do well against him is because they start with more moves than would be normal for Pokemon at these levels. And they typically have a lot more status moves, a lot more special moves, or a lot more stab moves. And all of those give them a really big advantage when they're up against Brock, because they'll actually have ways to do damage reliably. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the moveset of our Wigglytuff is when we get it. I expect that it still probably has Sing, but that's not even a guarantee. As we saw with Clefable, it had like completely different moveset. So, okay, we do have Sing, disabled Defense Curl, and Double Slap. Now, that's very interesting because Defense Curl is going to allow us to increase our own defense. So, and Double Slap is a multi-hit move. So, and plus it's stab. So Double Slap plus Defense Curl might put us in the position where we're doing up to 5 damage per turn. Assuming that we do 1 damage per hit, we could still be doing 5 damage per turn against the Geodude, and the Geodude might be doing significantly less damage to us after we use up all of our defense curls. So it's going to be very interesting, this one, because we don't have any particularly good moves per se. The other thing to keep in mind is that we could disable Tackle from Geodude, and if we disable Tackle from Geodude, it's going to have to use Struggle, which means it's going to hurt itself every time that it hits us. We could also potentially use Disable against the Onix, and with good luck, we might be able to get it to use a move like Bite or Screech more often than it uses, say, Tackle, if we could disable Tackle or disable Binds. And that could be good because it would help us use up our PP without taking damage so much. So this is going to be very interesting. We're going to save right here in front of the Bug Catcher. Well, we don't want to disable String Shot. Come on. But yeah, piece of cake. We got through the Bug Catcher, no problem. Okay, we just want to run away from those Pidgeys. And Here, we're going to go ahead and heal up. We have so much PP between all of these moves that I don't think there's any point in like trying to get to Brock with less PP to try to, get to struggle faster. So here, let's try the first time. We're going to go ahead and just use Defense Curl and see how low we can get the damage output from this Geodude. Then we're going to start trolling here and take advantage of the fact that it's now hitting itself with some recoil. Okay, and now we've gotten it to the point where it actually stays asleep. And now's where I'm going to start using my double slaps, because potentially we can reduce the damage that it does to us. So when we do get to Onix and we eventually do have to use Struggle, because we're not going to have enough PP, yeah, we may be able to get through. So okay, Screech was disabled. Okay. I'm gonna start using up defense curls here. Okay, he just keeps using Bide, which is kind of good. Like, yeah, keep using Bite. Just trying to use up all of our defense curls here. Let's see, that's not really working. Okay. So that was round 1, and that clearly didn't work. So let's try Disable right away, and then start with our defense curls. And then I think we can start singing. Yeah, this is just a much worse run. Okay. So here we're just trolling, but okay, that one didn't work. Like, we have such a trolly moveset that it's really just hilarious. Okay. But we just don't have a lot of damage dealing PP. Let's try this one more time here. So probably Defense Curl is our best lead-off move. Then Disable. Then let's go to Double Slap. Okay, that clearly doesn't work. So we want to use Defense Curl till he's only doing 2 damage. Then we want Disable to connect. Then want Disable to connect. Come on. He just like keeps getting out of Disable, which is a little ridiculous. It seems like every time the AI uses Disable on me, my move's disabled for a ridiculous number of turns, but here, his Geodude gets out of Disable like the same turn that we used it. It's usually when you get to like Koga, and he has that Juggler in his gym that uses Disable on you, and it always seems like his Disable lasts like way more turns than these Disables that we're using last. So that one's not working. Let's try one more attempt here. So for defense curls, sing, 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 sing. Okay. Disable. Double slap. Double slap. Double slap. Okay, so we are through the Geodude, but now we're at Onix with no double slaps remaining. That's not good. I think that we want to... Okay, we've disabled Tackle. And now we're trying to be a troll here. And as we can see, there's really just no way to get through. So I was very hopeful for Wigglytuff to be able to do this one, but really, unfortunately, we're going to have to knock Wigglytuff out. It just doesn't have enough attacking PP to get through the two Pokemon. Like, theoretically, if Double Slap hit 5 times every single time, we definitely get through the Geodude and we get most of the way through the Onix, but at some point we'd still have to resort to struggle in order to get through, and we're just not going to have enough HP left over in order to do that. So, with that, we're going to have to go ahead and knock Wigglytuff out and say that that one is not possible. Now, Zubat is a little bit interesting. In this sort of run. I don't think it's going to get to a very high level. I'm not sure if it's level up group, but I'm willing to bet that it's in the medium fast level up group, which means it's only going to get to Brock at level 6. That was pretty cool seeing Mewtwo there in the intro, by the way. But I think probably Zubat and Golbat are going to get there at level 6. I'm not entirely sure, but I think they're in the medium fast level up group. On the flip side though, the move Leech Life is going to do neutral damage to Brock. It's not a super powerful move, but it will be healing HP on our Pokemon at the same time as damaging him. And that could be very interesting, given that we would effectively heal up. Now, we can see right there how weak this move is. In fact, we're going to have to reset the Game Boy, and I did not save before fighting the rival. But again, this is a Pokemon that we probably have to do that. I think Zubat's going to struggle, because it's only got 15 PP. Low PP is always a big problem in these sorts of runs. It's pretty much the same thing that we just saw with Wigglytuff. But when we get to Golbat, I think, though I'm not sure, that Golbat is going to start with at least one Confusion move. And that could be incredibly interesting, because it could result in us being able to get through Brock by confusing him. Now we can see that just this rival fight is really difficult for Zubat. Because we don't do a whole lot of damage, and we really need the rival to miss attacks or just keep spamming Tail Whip over and over again. Like, don't use Tackle. Come on, rival, don't use Tackle. Like, every time that he uses Tail Whip, that's good for us. Every time that he uses Tackle, that's terrible for us, because we don't have any defense. And I think this is a pretty good indication of what we're actually dealing with here with Zubat. Because, while yes, I think it's possible to get to Brock, especially because the Caterpie in Viridian Forest, I don't think is going to do a ton of damage to us. The fact that we struggle with the rival this much is a pretty bad sign of things to come, I think. So we're going to give this a couple more attempts before we even say that we can't even get past the rival, which would put Zubat in the same group as Metapod and Kakuna, Pokemon that couldn't even beat the rival. Okay, we got through the rival. Oh, thank God. I was gonna be shocked if the run was over right there, versus Rival 1. Oh my God. But Leech Life is just that weak of an attack, and if the Eevee is hitting us for that much damage, and if we don't get to a decent level, like level 8, in Viridian Forest, I can only imagine that the Geodude is going to do the same thing to us. It's basically going to hit us so much harder than we hit it, and we're only going to be healing for maybe 1 damage, you know, 1 HP each time, so it's not going to be a great looking run. I would imagine that Zubat has to be quite a bit higher level. In fact, I think I've seen a run with it before, but that was in Red and Blue, I believe with J-Rose 11. But basically, he had to go all the way up to getting Bite in order to get through. I think he tried with Confusion strats using Supersonic, but Supersonic just has such low accuracy that it just wasn't really possible. Now the Caterpie here I think will be possible, but we should probably save in front anyway, because I'm not sure it's going to be perfectly consistent. The reason that I think it will be possible is because Caterpie doesn't deal a lot of damage, and String Shot is really a worthless move. So every time it uses String Shot, it's basically just allowing us to heal. But right there, we can see the problem with Zubat. It's only going to get to Brock at level 6, and it's only got 15 PP on its move. So we're going to be fighting Geodude 4 levels lower, with a move that isn't very strong, that, you know, only has 15 PP, and it's not like we have great defense or great stats here. So I think that this Geodude's probably going to knock us out pretty darn quick. Yeah. So, short of Geodude missing, like, a ton of attacks, we'll take one more shot at it just to show it, but this does not even look remotely possible. I think that was expected, given the moveset not being very effective. It's not stab, but with that, we have to remove another Pokemon from today's list, and so far 7 Pokemon have failed to make it through Brock. Golbat is really going to decide whether or not even 50% of our Pokemon can get through today. We had over 50% in our first run. We made it through with 9 of the first 15. But then out of the next 16, we only got through with 6 Pokemon. So it's really one of those things where I think in the end, we're not going to see 50% of Pokemon make it through. I think it's going to be significantly less than that. My basis for that is that a lot of Pokemon, they just don't have the movesets to get through. You know, even Pokemon that seem like they should have a decent chance, I think in a lot of cases are going to be in positions where they just really don't have that good of a chance. I mean, think about it for a second. If they start with just one normal type attacking move, and they don't have a lot of PP on that normal type attacking move, they're definitely not going to get through. If they start off, of course, with a move that causes any sort of, confusion on themselves, so like Thrash before with Nidoking, that's going to cause them not to get through. And if they just can't get enough luck, they might have a strategy that could get through eventually. So Nidoking and Vulpix, for example, probably with enough runs we could get through, but it's not going to be consistent enough with our rules, which is only 10 attempts max per trainer. So let's look at our Golbat here. We have Leech Life, Screech, and Bite. Now, Bite is going to be a significantly stronger move, and Screech lowers defense by 2 stages as opposed to 1. So this is going to be, I think, a much more interesting battle here. Because as we can see, we used Screech 3 times, and we just one-shot the Eevee. Now, Screech will also affect Leech Life, because Leech Life does its damage based on physical damage. So lowering the opponent's defense could make Leech Life actually more viable and heal more damage than just 1 point of damage off of each hit. So that's going to be something interesting to try out against Brock. It might be that against Geodude we just have to Screech it and then try to, just bulldoze through it with Bite, given that Bite is such a strong move and we might be able to flinch it with Bite. But when we get to Onix and we have lower HP, we may be able to use Screech while he's using Bite, for example, and then use Leech Life to heal HP off of the Onix. So this is going to be a very, interesting run, to say the least. But let's find out if this is going to be possible. So here we go. We got our Bug Catcher. I think we're going to do the same thing. We're going to Screech it a few times and then just start biting it. And there we go. Easy peasy. Not like Zubat. Golbat is doing a much, much better job. And we can see, all of our stats are better, but we still have pretty low defense. So that's going to be the challenge right here. So without further ado, let's try Brock here. And first, I'm going to try Screech on him a few times and just see. Okay, so with 3 Screeches, it looks like we did about a quarter damage to him. If we don't use Screech at all, we can see the damage that we were doing was terrible. Now let's see if we use Screech, and we need to not miss there. We're still just healing 1 damage there, but what if we use like 3 Screeches successfully? There we go. Yeah, there, that didn't work so well, so... That was one where if we had gotten those 3 Screeches off, and then started biting, we might have been able to get through, so... 2, 3, okay, that's pretty good. Oh, we don't need the critical hit there, come on. So, that one, if we hadn't gotten the critical hit, we would have gotten through Geodude on that one. But we just didn't have enough HP, and that critical hit basically negates all the value of the Screeches that we used. Now we can get some flinches. That's really the other thing that we can do. Okay, so we got 3 Screeches off, but we really needed to flinch. 2, 3. And if he just flinched or anything there, we could have gotten through. Let's give this just a couple more attempts. So far, we haven't even gotten through to the Onix. And that critical hit just... We need to hit with all 3 Screeches. And then get... Okay, last attempt, because if we can get 3 Screeches off... So it looks like Golbat just isn't going to be able to make it through, unfortunately. I thought that it would have a chance if it had a confusion type move, but unfortunately it didn't start with Supersonic or Confuse Ray, which to me is a little interesting because Supersonic should be the next move that Zubat learns, but for whatever reason, the developers decided that they would start Golbat off without Supersonic, that they would start it with Bite and Screech instead, and that basically spelled the doom of our Golbat. So, next Pokemon up. We have it coming. We're going to go ahead and use Oddish. Now, Oddish should not struggle against Brock. I'm not worried about that at all. But Oddish starts with only one move, which is Absorb. And the fact that it's starting with Absorb is going to be pretty interesting against that bug catcher with the Caterpie in Viridian Forest. Yes, we'll be healing every time that we use the move, but we're going to run into a pretty big problem, which is that our move is not going to be very effective. And it might make it so that the Caterpie can knock us out quicker than we can do damage to it. So this one's going to be really up in the air. Definitely, if we can get to Brock, we're in the clear. But only having a 20 PP move in Absorb is actually really bad for us at this point. There we can see that we already lost to the rival once. Absorb is not an incredibly strong move. So we just have to see if it has any shot of getting through. Now the Caterpie, fortunately, will be able to waste turns against us by using String Shot. And so that will be the kind of luck that we're waiting for, is to see, okay, if Caterpie uses String Shot enough times, will we be able to get through? But first things first, we have to beat our rival here in the lab. And there we go. We've gotten through. Just took, one extra attempt, which is fine. We've got lots of Pokemon that failed their first attempt against the rival. The rival has Stab on its move, Tackle, so it's really just some Pokemon we're sitting here praying, like, please just use Tail Whip one more time. Which really makes the rival much more difficult than in a normal playthrough. Now, granted, if you don't have rules like no items in battle, you could make a lot of these battles consistent. You could make a lot of these battles possible by just, sitting and healing up with potions, for example. So, the fact that we have no items in battle is a pretty big constraint on a lot of these, because there are Pokemon that it might just be a matter later in the game of using a bunch of X defense and like an X accuracy and a one-hit KO move. But of course that would be a really cheesy strategy for getting through the game. That's part of the reason why, a lot of runners say no items in battle, because you could just make the game an absolute joke. Now, that being said, there are definitely cases where that would be good for like a speed run, for example. But anyway, here we are. We have Oddish. We are going up against the Caterpie, and this is going to be probably the most difficult battle of this section of the game. Basically, we needed to use String Shot a lot. We needed not to use Tackle a lot. And then, yeah, we just have to take it down, but it looks like we got through. He used String Shot enough times, he wasted enough turns, and his tackles aren't that strong, so we were able to get through. So, very nice. And we can see that Oddish is part of the medium-slow level up group, so it's reached level 8 here, going into Brock. And I think this one is going to be an absolute cakewalk. So let's try it. Absorb 1. We've leveled up to level 9. And please don't use Bind, okay? And there we go. We've gotten through Brock. We were able to heal up to full HP. And our Oddish has successfully gotten through, and it only took 3 attacks to get through Brock. So with that being said, I think we can already chalk up Gloom and Vileplume, but we should be careful, especially in the case of Vileplume, because it's Stone Evolution, and it could start with a really weird moveset where it misses certain attacks that, its previous previous evolutions would have had, and that could come back to bite us in certain situations. We saw it with Nidoking, so we have to really think that anything is possible here. There's no guaranteed, like, oh, we have this Pokemon, so it's 100% gonna get through. If we don't know what moveset it's gonna start off with. Now, Gloom should start off, I think, with a more standard moveset, given that typically, just evolutions typically start with roughly the same attacks as their pre-evolution did, but yeah, here we have Poison Powder and Stun Spore to go together with Absorb. So all those are really going to enable us to do is, for example, we can Poison Eevee here, and then we can do more damage per turn. It's going to make the Caterpie much more consistent as well, I think, because the Caterpie, we're going to be able to just come right out and poison it, and then start spamming our other moves, which should make, instead of doing just, our absorb damage every turn, we'll also be doing poison damage, so Yeah, I think Gloom's got this one in the bag, really. It's really just a question, hey, Brock, are you going to be all one hits, or are you going to be some two hits still on the Onix? But really, Gloom here is going to be a pretty good Pokemon. And I think this line, same as the Bulbasaur line, is actually going to do really well through a lot of the game. The Oddish and Gloom and, like the Bulbasaur line as well, they've got type advantages on the first two gyms, so we're not going to have to worry at all when we get to Misty. She's going to be a piece of cake. And we're not going to have to really worry too much against Lieutenant Surge, because we're going to resist his Thunder-type attacks. So it's really going to be when we get to, like, Sabrina that we'll have some big possibility of not being able to get through. And of course Blaine will have a type advantage against us, but if we can get through those two gyms, Koga's also got a lot of special type moves, psychic moves in this generation, so I guess Koga's going to be a challenge too. Erica, we should get some poison type moves that will allow us to break through poison and normal type moves that will allow us to get through Erica. So really, it will be Sabrina, Koga, and Blaine. But once we get through those, Giovanni we should be able to get through without too much difficulty. Then thinking to the Elite Four, Lorelei and Bruno should definitely be fine. Agatha will be a huge challenge to these Pokemon. So that's what we're going to have to see as we continue through. But I think these Pokemon have a pretty good shot of getting through the game. There we have it with Gloom. Our Gloom was able to get through, reached level 11. It's got a nice move set going for it because Stun Spore and Poison Powder are going to help us get through some Pokemon that otherwise might pose us with some troubles, especially Poison-type Pokemon. But Jesse and James could be a challenge here. And we might have to resort to like a bide strategy or something like that in order to get through them. With these grass types that don't also have a normal type move. So that could be very interesting. But with that being said, let's go to our very last Pokemon for today. And that is going to be our Vileplume. And I'm very interested to see what Vileplume's moveset is going to be. Of course, provided it has a grass type attack, it's going to get through Brock with no issues, but it's just going to be very interesting to see exactly what moves it hits. Because those movesets can really affect how good the Pokemon is here in the early game. And it could set up some different challenges as we progress, because Stone Evolution Pokemon typically don't learn moves as they level up. It's basically they've evolved with the stone and now they just, get the moves that they have. So let's see what we've got on Vileplume here. So we can see we have Stun Spore, Sleep Powder, Acid, and Petal Dance. This is an incredible moveset for this early in the game, even though it doesn't have Poison Powder. Sleep Powder is a much more effective move in many ways, and as we can see, Petal Dance is incredibly powerful as a grass move. That move in and of itself is going to make pretty much the first 3 gyms a joke, I think. And the fact that we have Acid is going to help us a lot against Erica when we get to her, because it will be super effective against Tangela, and then it will be neutrally effective against Weeping Bell and Gloom. So that bodes pretty well for that situation, though, given that Vileplume's also going to have better moves than those Pokemon. So this is going to be very interesting. Now, the other place where grass Pokemon are going to struggle, of course, is with ghosts. And that's why I said, like, Agatha. If they can get through to the Elite Four, Agatha is going to be a huge challenge for them, because, you know, how are they going to do decent damage to the ghost Pokemon? There definitely are some... Ooh, that's not what we wanted. Sorry guys, we're going to have to make our first reset because we ran into a bug catcher that we didn't mean to fight. So let's go ahead and reset. We already know that getting through the rival in Oak's Lab is a piece of cake, so let's go ahead and be Ash. Let's go ahead and be Gary. But yeah, ghost Pokemon for these grass types are going to be a huge challenge, because typically grass Pokemon, the only moves that they really learn are normal type attacking moves, grass type attacking moves, and then maybe poison type attacking moves. They don't typically learn any other types of attacking moves in this generation. And of course that means that they're not going to be very effective against ghosts with anything that they use. Now, the poison type moves may be the way to go if they have something like Acid. And the reason I say that is because at least the poison type moves are physical as opposed to special, and the ghosts don't necessarily have super strong defense. But with that being said, we also have to deal with the fact that it's not going to be super effective. It's going to be not very effective, so we're going to do less damage. So probably what we're going to actually have to rely on is either sleep or sleep or paralysis as status moves in order to get through those ghosts. Of course, if we can put an opponent to sleep for, you know, 7 turns, which is possible in this generation, and in some way lock them out of using their attacks, then sure, we can get through, I think, with a decent amount of luck, you know. But yeah, this is going to be very interesting. So Acid here against the Caterpie makes it a 2-hit KO, which is pretty good. Poison is super effective against Bug in this generation, which I always thought made sense. Like, I never understood why that would have gone away in later generations, because what do you do to kill bugs? You put out poison, right? So it always made sense to me that poison should be super effective, but why Bug is super effective against poison never made any sense to me whatsoever. And here, yep, we were able to get through with no problem against Brock. So anyway, everybody, thank you for watching today. That concludes our 14 Pokemon that we've tested today to see who could get through Brock on minimum battles. Of our 14 challengers, only 6 were able to get through. And that was true last time when we did 16 Pokemon. So of the last 30 Pokemon, only 12 have gotten through. And that's after starting out with 9 out of the first 15 getting through. So in total, 21 Pokemon have gotten through out of the first 45 Pokemon in this generation. And this is only Brock. We haven't even gotten to Misty, Lieutenant Surge, Sabrina, Rival Fivel when we get there. Of course, Blaine, Giovanni, the Elite Four. There's so much more game to go that the fact that less than half of all Pokemon are getting through at this point is pretty shocking. But it shows you just how strong Brock is at the beginning of the game, and thus why it's so interesting to do this sort of experiment. So next time, when we come back, we will be moving on to the next set of Pokemon, and we will in fact be getting my personal favorite Pokemon in the next run. You see, my favorite Pokemon of all time is Arcanine. I had a dream about Arcanine when I was a kid, and I dreamt that it was like a super strong Pokemon that I was riding on its back, and I was able to defeat a Mewtwo with it. And when I was a kid, I used to play with my friends, and I had actually caught a level 255 Arcanine using the Missing No glitch. And my Arcanine was so powerful that I was able to destroy all of my friends with it. I just had the right moves on it, and I was able to use Dig at opportune times, and use Fire Blast, and a bunch of different attacks that I just love Arcanine. I hope Arcanine's going to be able to get through this game on minimum battles. Definitely the fact that it learns Dig is going to be a huge boost to it, but that will be for next time. Hopefully it can get through Brock, so that we can get to the point where we at least get to see some strats like that. Anyway, we'll be going up through Arcanine on the next playthrough, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe below, and leave some comments if you think that I took a bad strategy. Maybe you think that there was something we could have done to get Wigglytuff through, or Vulpix through, or Nidoking through. Comment down below. I'm always open to replaying specific Pokemon. We already did it with Butterfree and Bulbasaur based on feedback that, yeah, their stats weren't very good. What if they had max DVs? And from that time, we've always used max DVs in our playthroughs. So if you have a good idea of a way that we could optimize a run, go ahead and leave it down below, and we'll read them, and hopefully, if we get some good ideas, we'll actually try them. So anyway, thank you very much for joining today. We'll see you next time.